Welcome to the TSD Mindfulness video for teaching number 14. We're going over the list of products of the temperamental body. The temperamental body is made up of the mental field, the gut field, and the heart field. In the previous videos, we've already gone over what the mental field and gut field operate on and what they produce. In this video, we're going over the heart field. So teaching number 14 is the heart field operates on trust and produces emotion. I'll say that again. The heart field operates on trust and produces emotion. So the heart field is quite different than the mental and gut fields. For example, the heart field doesn't weigh options. It doesn't make projections about what might happen in the future or make decisions like the mental field does. And the heart field isn't concerned about survival, like the gut field is completely concerned about survival. Instead, the heart field operates on trust, which is really beautiful. Yet at the same time, this opens us up to pain, to emotional pain, egotistical pain, sometimes physical pain. With trust comes hurt sometimes. So we can manage mental and gut suffering, meaning we can use some techniques to tame our thinking, to manage some of that suffering that might come from our own thinking. We can also use techniques that are shared in these videos to soothe our nervous system, to help with that type of pain, that type of discomfort. And the heart is a little bit different. The heart, our approach isn't necessarily to do anything to change what's going on in the heart. It's more about acceptance and surrender to what's going on there. That's the best way to approach the pain that's in your heart, in using self-compassion. The self-compassion definitely does make that pain easier, and also supports our healing process, which is what we want to do. When we get in touch with that pain in our hearts, we want to support ourselves to go through a healing process. The mental and gut fields are constantly trying to protect us from the pain in our heart. So let me break that down. So our heart operates on trust. We're trusting. We end up experiencing pain sometime because we were trusting. And our mental field, our thinking, is constantly trying to do things to avoid that pain, to problem solve, to predict, to anticipate, right? So we don't have that pain. The gut field is also doing things to help prevent that pain, putting us into fight or flight, freeze or fawn as a way to keep us safe from that pain. So in a way, that's good, right? But in a way, it's not so good, because if we are constantly avoiding this pain, it's difficult for us to heal. It's also difficult for us to engage in really authentic type relationships. So staying safe emotionally, egotistically, and physically is important, and we don't want to let go of this security in the heart, but the heart has an alternative way to keep us safe. So typically the way we operate, our mental field and our gut field are keeping us safe from the pain in our heart, but through the TSD mindfulness meditation practice, we actually move into a different type of security that doesn't involve your mental field or your gut field. It's more about integrating with a divine energy. And I'm not asking people to walk around all day like this. It's more, when you're sitting down and meditating and having these healing experiences. But this approach is absent of decisions. It's not about making decisions. It's not about having alarms sounding off, which is what the gut field does. This alternative approach is surrendering to a divine flow and trusting what comes next. So really moving into that trust. So if you're someone that is having trouble trusting yourself, trusting other people, trusting the universe, trusting spirit, this practice is going to really help you to strengthen that trust. So here are a couple questions I'd like you to think about. What is your concept of this alternative approach to safety? So we've talked about how the mental field helps keep us safe, the gut field helps keep us safe, but I'm now saying in this mindfulness practice, we're actually going to step away from that type of safety and lean into a different type of security that comes more from source. And so, so just think about for yourself, what is your concept of this alternative approach to safety? What is your concept of spiritual security? What does that mean for you? So when we are truly in our hearts, we do not make a single decision because the decisions are already made. It takes less effort. It takes less energy, leaving us with more time and energy to do the things that we love, with no decisions to make, no alarms to tune into. We're left to simply watch the events unfold in our life. So what might be an example of that? So say somebody is dating, and before they started doing this work, when they're dating, they're just really in their heads thinking about, is he going to call? Is she going to text me? There might be some fight or flight responses, getting your nervous system triggered due to some of the interactions while you're dating. And then moving into this other approach, it might look more like, okay, I'm dating someone. I'm just kind of observing, watching how things unfold, really staying in my heart to make sure that I'm in a secure, good place with this dating scenario. One of the reasons this approach isn't popular is because your ego plays no role in this process. So if your ego doesn't play a role, then the ego feels useless. And this is the ego's saddest feeling. The ego does not want to feel useless. So again, this process that I'm inviting you to participate in, especially when you're sitting in your meditation practice of letting go of your thinking, letting go of your nervous system responses, and really just truly being your heart. The reason that your being fights this so much is because the ego has no role. There's nothing for the ego to do. The ego doesn't have the power to be making decisions and making changes. And so you can use your mindfulness to sit with that and see what that's like. Like, it might be really triggering for your ego to not play a huge role, especially in this time allotted when you're sitting in your meditation. So the big takeaway here is that the mental field can be an obstacle in completely surrendering in your hearts. So it's really important to have those practices of taming your mental field, which we've talked about in previous videos. And our gut field can also be an obstacle to our ability to really move in our consciousness into our hearts and surrender to the experience, because that idea of embracing uncertainty, just letting go of knowing what the outcome is, that surrender could be very triggering for your gut field. So again, very important to know how to soothe your gut field so you can move your consciousness into your hearts. And that's covered in other videos. A common concern that people have about really quieting their mental field and maybe even soothing your gut field is that they think that they'll be too vulnerable and that the people in their lives might take advantage of them or treat them poorly. So again, a common concern with this type of work is people might think that they'll become too vulnerable, and they might be taken advantage of. But it's actually quite the opposite. So the energy we embody when we are led to be in our hearts is not meek. It's not weak. It's very, there's a lot of clarity in the work of moving your energy into your heart. So if you're someone that's kind of has doubt or confusion about boundaries and what to say to people and what people to be around. When you do this work and move your consciousness into your heart, that becomes very clear. It becomes very clear that, this is someone that's causing me a lot of pain. I need to, or it's not a decision. Like I said, these don't feel like decisions anymore. It's just like you're in your heart. You are noticing that this particular person is causing you a lot of pain, and it's just obvious. It's like, I need to just not be around that person anymore, or it's very obvious I need to set this boundary when I'm around this person. It becomes very clear. So definitely not going to make you put you into a situation that's not going to be safe for you. So when you open up to divine flow and move in its direction, you'll be steered away from abusive people. In fact, your heart creates better boundaries between you and abusers than your mental and your gut fields put together. When you are truly in your heart field, it will feel nonsensical to subject yourself to abuse. So continuing on, I'll repeat the name of this teaching, which is the heart field operates on trust. The heart field produces emotion. After you've moved your consciousness into your heart field and truly trusted divine flow, and what your heart has for you, is emotions, these deep emotions of gratitude, of love. Some of the emotions are painful, of abandonment, of rejection. And these emotions are true to your core. They cannot be denied because they are truly who you are. These heart emotions are different than mental emotions. So mental emotions are anger, resentment, blame. Not that these are necessarily bad emotions, but they are intertwined with this conditional logic that I talked about in a previous video. And so that's not the true emotions of the heart. So anger is intertwined with logic because you get angry because you have a certain belief system. If this person does this, then they should not do this. And so that's in your mental field is definitely involved there. But if you just have a true, genuine emotion of rejection or a true genuine emotion of abandonment, that's not intertwined with a lot of logic, then that's from the heart. And so let me go into some more examples of the difference between these, what I call mental emotions and these heart emotions, because the heart emotions are what I'm talking about when I say the heart produces emotion. The heart produces these heart emotions. So happiness is an example of a mental emotion. Happiness is based on happenings. Because something happened, we're happy. Joy, on the other hand, is a heart emotion. So someone might be happy because they got a job that they always wanted, or someone might be happy because the drinking glass didn't break when it hit the floor. But joy is a little bit different. It's not based in logic. Joy can even come up about something that doesn't even make sense. We just have this spontaneous feeling of joy. And so hopefully you can see the difference between this happiness and this joy. Heart emotions can also be painful. For example, if someone it experiences a tinge of like this physical pain in their heart out of the blue, and then they feel this sadness about someone they've lost, some grief there, that would be a heart emotion. Guilt is a heart emotion. Guilt is a heart emotion, while shame is a mental emotion. So let me talk about the difference between guilt and shame. So shame comes with this conditional thinking, for example, or not for example, shame is always about like, I'm lesser than because of something. There's some logic attached. Shame comes with this belief that I'm lesser than of a person, because of something. This logic is attached. Guilt is different. Guilt is because we've gone against one of our values and we feel bad about it. And guilt can often lead to shame. We go against one of our values, we feel bad about it, and then we go into shame and think, what a bad person we are. But that's the shame. The guilt on its own is just simply that feeling of like, oh, I feel bad about that. And a healthy form of guilt is just feeling that in your heart, feeling that you feel bad about that, but at the same time, knowing you're human and you make mistakes and it's okay. So a feeling of guilt might lead us to forgive or apologize, while a feeling of shame might lead us to isolate ourselves or become angry. So very different. Detecting spontaneity, how spontaneous your emotions are, is also another good indicator if it's a heart emotion or not. Heart emotions are often very spontaneous. They just kind of come up. They actually often come up so quickly we don't even notice, and they move into our mental field, and we experience more of the mental emotion. What should you do if you experience a heart emotion? Something to think about. What should you do if you experience a heart emotion? If you experience a heart emotion, one of the first things you want to do is tune into your body. Where am I feeling this in my body? So let's talk about grief, some type of grief, sadness, loss. You start to feel that. Where am I feeling that? Am I feeling it mostly in my chest? Am I feeling it in my back? Am I feeling any of it in my gut area? Where am I feeling that emotion? So that's one of the first things that you want to do when you experience that heart emotion. Another thing you want to do is check in with your mental field. So you're feeling this heart emotion of grief. What kind of thinking is instigated because of that heart emotion? Are you going to shame? Shame and grief are often connected. Grief often instigates thoughts of shame. Well, I didn't do enough. I could have done this. I could have done better. What if I did this? So that's another thing to do when you're feeling a heart emotion, is to be mindful of some of those shame cycles or any type of thinking cycles that might come up, and to really feel the emotion, the heart emotion, in a healthy way. You want to move your attention away from those thinking cycles, because those are going to impede your ability to really heal through the emotion. So if you notice that thinking, move your attention back to your body, noticing the sensations, the physical sensations associated with that emotion. You might also want to name the emotion. So it's interesting with thinking, we name the thinking to kind of separate from the thinking, to take a step back from the thinking. But when it comes to our heart emotions, we name them heart emotions to lean into it. So grief, this is what grief feels like. I feel grief. This is loss. And naming the emotion can help you sit there with it in a healthy way. Move yourself away from the thinking that comes up around it. And the other thing that you want to do if you're feeling a heart emotion is to use self-compassion. For example, if you're feeling loss, even though I feel this emotion of loss, I'm loved. Even though I'm feeling this emotion of loss, I'm worthy. I'm worthy of love. This emotion in no way takes away from my worthiness. In fact, feeling this emotion deeply could add to your worthiness, your ability to just really lean into the human experience. This is part of the human experience. Grief, loss is part of the human experience. And even though I feel this loss, I'm connected. Just because I'm feeling this loss doesn't disconnect me from other people. In fact, it can connect me even more, connect me to the people who have experienced the same feeling of loss. And even though I'm feeling this emotion of loss, of grief, I'm a good person. That's really helpful to address those shame cycles that might come up. Yeah, dwelling in the heart is not for the faint-hearted. Heart emotions come up when you least expect it. Yet these emotions are the most real experience you may ever know. It's really your authentic experience. These emotions are who you are. They show you who you are moment by moment. They show the greatness that you bring to the world. You heal the world with your authenticity, and you heal yourself when you sit with those heart emotions. So this concludes teaching number 14 of the TSD Mindfulness teachings.